In sports, if you want to be the best, there are no off days.
Welcome into the No Off Days podcast. You know, when temps drop below 80 degrees in Florida, It can only mean one thing. It's fall, baby.
Finally, our 1 week of fall has arrived.
Last week I was in Pittsburgh. I saw all the beautiful foliage in the Steel City, and it reminded me of Florida.
Yeah,
no, it did not, actually.
We don't get foliage here. We do have a lot of leaves, brown stuff on the ground. It's mostly hurricane debris that we haven't swept up yet. But
they came through my neighborhood this last week and scooped it up. Good news.
Well, knowing you probably put more than hurricane debris in your piles out there. I'm glad, though. We finally get to, bust out some long-sleeve shirts.
Yeah.
You're doing it today.
This is my pumpkin spice flavored shirt.
Yeah, we can drink a pumpkin spice latte, a hot one, without feeling like frauds for the next few days, because we're getting some nice 60s and 70s. We can bust out the flannel.
Speaking of, I brought some pumpkin spice flavored items, and I just want a quick sample. I know next week we're talking about Halloween and all the delicious Halloween candy, so we'll be eating a lot next week as a tease.
Yes.
But here we go. So we got some pumpkin spice flavored gummies.
Okay.
Here, give it a shot.
All right.
We got pumpkin.
Go
This table has never been longer.
I know.
I wish my arms had a better rate. We have pumpkin spice flavored pretzels, and then pumpkin spice flavored Jelly Bellies.
The pumpkin spice flavored gummy.
Can you get your mouth in there so our audio audience can hear the chewing? Okay, that's disgusting. All right.
The ASMR?
What do you think?
That's what the kids like, right? It tastes just like a gummy bear. I don't taste the pumpkin spice, but what it tastes like? One of those chewy lifesavers. It's good.
Yeah.
I don't get the pumpkin spice, though.
The pumpkin spice pretzels.
Where's the nutmeg? There needs to be...
There you go. Take that.
Can
I just have a pumpkin spice flavored pumpkin pie? I mean, I'm kind of an all seasons pumpkin pie.
Do you even like pumpkin pie?
Do I like it?
Yeah.
I love it.
Do you?
I absolutely love pumpkin pie.
I do too.
I
but
have
a lot
one
of
actually
people
sitting
don't.
in the fridge right now.
You know what percentage of people that sip these pumpkin spice things and eat this kind of stuff don't really like pumpkin pie?
Really?
There are a bunch of pretenders out there.
Oh.
I love it. The pretzel, this is good.
Yeah.
I taste the nutmeg.
We need to send some back to the control room. With that, let's kick this thing off with Brian King behind the darkened door there. Producer BK, we will get you a shipment of all things pumpkin spice here in a moment.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. That was Brian's name. I'm sorry,
Do you
Brian.
eat pumpkin pie just in the fall, or is it a year-round thing?
No, I think it should be available at the ready.
I wish we could have it and turkey year-round. Why do we only eat turkey on Thanksgiving?
Turkey throughout the year, but pumpkin pie just seems like it's, fall.
It does seem that way, but that's because you need to have your mind open.
What about sweet potato pie? That's a good one,
I'm
too.
okay with sweet potato pie, but it's not pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie number one. All right, enough about food for now. We'll come back to it, I suppose. Brian, look, hey, it's fall, and it's football season, and we're going to talk a lot of football today. Give us an idea of what's coming up.
Talk a little bit of football, talk a little bit about the college games this past weekend, some of the upsets, and talk a little bit about the Bucs and what's going on with Tom Brady. And what better person to bring in than someone that's got experience both in the college side and the pro side. And that's Anthony McFarland, Booger McFarland.
Oh, yes. Now I know his name.
Now you know him.
Are you allowed to call him Anthony?
I thought it'd be proper to say his first name first instead of his Booger.
We'll find out if he has any friends named BK, like we call you BK. I don't know if he does.
All right, we are looking forward to it. Thank you, BK. Chris, one of the things that I'm most looking forward to in this show is the gentleman that joins us out on studio now. It is Jeff Tewksbury. Please, just everybody give it up for Jeff. And he's got his guitar. You brought your guitar.
I did.
Why did you do that?
Well, it's a prop mostly, but you had asked me to bring this something from home, and I thought, well, this will do.
It's like a show and tell.
Yes, precisely. Something.
We were hoping you would bring food, and you bring this.
I know, and there's not enough of this guitar for all of us, and I'm just going to selfishly just.
So, Jeff, I assigned you something, and it may not be fair of me to have done this, but I had a dream, and this was a real thing. I woke up in the morning, and I thought, I have an idea for the show. And I immediately texted, Tukes and, of course, BK with this idea that I want you to do a musical recap of the show at the end of the show. So you have from now until the end of the show to kind of fine-tune and come up with an original, a Tukes masterpiece.
You dreamt about Tukes.
It happens quite often, actually.
This is, do you need a therapist?
I do. Okay. I have a lot of issues, but this is one of my crazy dreams that I think I'm so excited
I'm really excited too.
But are you going to give him food? I don't know if that's good.
No,
before.
he's not singing yet, so I'm just going to roll over. Can
okay.
I do that?
Nice.
All right, there
Chris,
you go.
Thank you.
That's just to show that
Now,
Tukes is in the same studio with us.
If I eat it, I won't be able to sing. But I'm going to put it in my pocket and save it.
All right.
Of course.
Don't let it melt.
So-
Okay, so are you up for the task?
Scott, yes.
All right,
And
I knew you would be.
I did crib a little bit. I prepared some preemptory, but I'll also include what's about to take place.
Well, there's some immutable parts of our show.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Like Chris is always going to be sitting there and wearing some T-shirt, and I'm going to be sitting here, and Brian's going to do this.
There's
So
some
we're looking
things
forward.
you can count on.
All right, so that is, of course, coming up at the end of the show. Get to work writing Tukes and fine-tuning that guitar, by the way.
That's going to be
All right,
fun.
if you are listening and you would like to watch, go to fox13news.com/nodpod. If you're watching and you want to subscribe, the easiest thing to do right now is take out your smartphone, point it at the screen. You see that little QR code, the little thing, the white with the black dots, look like ink blot a little bit? That's
Yeah.
our QR code. So if you scan that, it'll actually take you to our main page, where you can listen and you can download and you can absorb it. You can a lot to take in there.
There's a portal, and more people are finding it, I've heard. So yeah.
It's like the transfer portal, but we don't let you leave.
Yeah, and we don't pay you for listening.
So you just become part of the program.
You're captive.
All right, so let's start with some hard news. Some difficult news, and I don't even mind bringing Brian back into this because both of you guys are die-hard Alabama fans, and I know we're days removed now, but it's kind of a post-mortem. How are we? Are we okay? Are we holding up?
I'm still wallowing. I don't know about you, Brian. I'm still wallowing in that loss.
Yeah, losses stink, but I'm good with it. I mean, when I went to school there, it was some lean times. So whenever we get beat, I go, okay, yeah, it stinks.
Perspective.
But, at least I wasn't back when I was in school.
That's a good point, too. I also thought for the younger generation of Alabama fans, like my nephew that just graduated last year, he doesn't remember losing to Tennessee, right? And we won 15 in a row. Tennessee, next to Auburn, is our most hated rival, right? And it used to be brutal. And when Brian and I were younger men, not too long ago, Tennessee won like 8 in a row. Like, it was torture. And then, we would win several in a row, and it's gone back and forth. But the younger Alabama fans, maybe if anything good happens of this terrible loss, like, they will appreciate beating Tennessee a little more next year. Because I think, last year or a few years ago, I went to an Alabama-Tennessee game. We, blew them out, and all the young Alabama fans were just, it's another Saturday. I'm like, no, we beat Tennessee. We smoke cigars now, and we appreciate this.
Well, you remember that bad spring break where you had to get a tattoo of Philip Fulmer on your body, right?
I'm still getting it lasered off. It was in an unfortunate location.
Yeah. Bama fans now are enjoying the glory days, although maybe it's switching a little bit. I will say that I'm not for destruction of property, but when you see a chunk of goalpost floating down the Tennessee River, I kind of am in favor of that.
I think it's money well spent by Tennessee's raising money now as if they need to raise money, but raising money to replace their goalposts now.
All right, so how does the SEC shape up, guys? Because we have, according to my math, we got 4 teams that have a legit shot of making the playoff, and I think 2 SEC teams are making it in because the Pac-12 is pretty weak this year, and the Big 12 is pretty weak as well. So it looks like we got a Big Ten team. Looks like we got Clemson, who doesn't play anybody but cupcakes, and probably 2 SEC teams. So how bad does this loss for Alabama, how bad does it actually hurt? Because you win the West, you're back in the SEC championship game.
Well, Brian, I'll let you go first on this.
I mean, that's the point. I mean, it hurts Alabama because they lost.
Pride.
But in the
Hurts
big
the pride.
picture thing, I mean, they just went out. They're still in. Tennessee, to get to the playoff, theoretically, more than likely, has to beat Georgia again. They play at Georgia. And then they'll have to win the SEC championship game against Alabama on a neutral site. So that's 2 wins they have to get just to get where Bama's just 1 win away. And it's the same thing with Georgia. Georgia has to beat Tennessee. If they lose to Tennessee, they're not in the SEC championship game. They do have an outside shot of getting in the playoff, but it's you're kind of hoping on other teams' losses at that point.
And that's assuming that there's no other hiccups because Tennessee still has Kentucky and Kentucky's no cakewalk.
Mississippi State at home. And Kentucky at home. Both of those are at home. Georgia has
Missouri. They have Missouri, South
Georgia
Carolina,
has
Vandy.
a tougher path now, I think, than Tennessee does. Georgia has Mississippi State at home and
You want me to
Kentucky
tell
at
you?
home. No,
Georgia has Florida, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
So
I think Georgia has a little tougher path than Tennessee, but here's how I look at it. For Alabama, obviously you can't lose again, and they most likely won't. I don't know what could happen. But we saw last year, same thing, lost to A&M early in the season, went on, beat Georgia in the SEC championship and got in. What I think this loss does is it muddies up the playoff picture for everyone else, and it, as you said, increases the likelihood of getting 2 SEC teams in. Now, you made some assumptions about the Pac-12. There are still some viable.
They're pretty accurate, though.
Yeah.
They're
Oregon's got one loss to Georgia. If they run the table and get in, you got to put them in as a Pac-12 champ.
Yeah,
probably.
I mean, you would have to see an SEC implosion of sorts. I mean, because at this point in the season, I mean, you got to have somebody lose to somebody that nobody's kind of calling for, right?
Well, I think one thing's for sure, Clemson's getting in. And so that takes one spot there.
So Clemson has Syracuse this week. And if you're watching the Sunday night show, perhaps we're already talking about it being done. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they got Notre Dame. They have Louisville, Miami, South Carolina. It seems like that's a road to an undefeated season.
And the ACC championship game against maybe North Carolina?
Probably North Carolina.
Like? Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty good path.
All right. Well, we will move on now. There will be no more mention of Alabama. Maybe one or two.
I bet there will be.
All right. Okay. So we're moving on from that. But I want to talk about hot seats in college football a little bit right now because you have Auburn, Brian Harsin. Hot seat. Hottest of hot seats?
Last year the university is trying to get rid of him. And his players, the funny thing is, if you watch their games, the players seem bought in on him, but it's the university and the fans that are trying to get rid of him.
The guy that people want to say he's on the hot seat, but I don't believe he's on the hot seat is Jimbo Fisher, of course, because they pay him too much money for that seat to ever get too hot.
Yeah.
So that begs the question, with a recent interview on 60 Minutes, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, talked about the opportunity, if it comes across, to join a Power 5 conference team, that he would look at it. He would consider it, given what he's done at Jackson State. And they, to this point, undefeated. Last year, they won the conference. He's recruited some players that he's competing against Alabama and Georgia for some of these guys. How intriguing is Coach Prime at a school like Auburn, at a school like Missouri, at a school like if Arizona moves on from Fish? I mean, do you see him being a successful coach at that level?
Well, not at Auburn, because they would just turn it into a dumpster fire, as they've done for their past 4 or 5 coaching hires. But I could see him being successful at the Power 5 level in a major conference with the right staff around him, right? Like, I don't know how much of an X's and O's guy he is, but I know he's a great recruiter, and he's a great motivator, and he's going to sell guys on the NFL. He can get them there. So I could see him working at a Power 5 league if he's got the right people around him.
And is that not the name of the game in college football?
Yeah.
I mean, of course you want to coach your guys up and you want to, to educate them and bring them along in the game. But it comes down to how well you can recruit. And if Coach Prime can sit inside somebody's living room for the same player that Nick Saban is, I mean, if I'm an AD, if I'm a president of a university, I want that. I want a guy that's going to give me as much equal footing as possible with the big guns, and let's start getting some talent in here and see what he can do. And can he provide a great coaching staff that is able to execute the X's and O's if it's not him?
Well, with NIL money, right, these things are possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right, in the NFL, talking about muddied waters a little bit, we have a handful of 3-3 teams, and I want to kind of dive into who's trending up and who's trending down in these 3-3 teams. So we have the Bucs, we got the Packers, we got the Rams, we got the 49ers, Seahawks, Falcons, Ravens, Bengals, Dolphins, Patriots. All these teams are 3-3. Some of them may be overachieving 3-3, and some are clearly underachieving. And in that group, I would put the Rams, I would put the Bucs, I would put the Packers.
I'd put the Ravens in that group.
Ravens, absolutely.
Yeah.
And next week when they take on the Bucs, we're going to start to see some of that separation. Who are the teams in that group that are pretenders and who are actually playoff teams? I think by virtue of simply being in the NFC South, the Bucs are a playoff team.
I think
the
so
NFC
too.
South is so bad that even if they finish the season with 9 wins, I think they're in.
The Falcons are 3-3, right?
And I think they're pretenders.
Overachievers. Right?
Is that the word?
Yeah. I agree that the Bucs, by virtue of the division, not that it's fair necessarily, are going to be a playoff team, but are they a Super Bowl team or a conference championship team? I don't think so. Not at this point. And, we'll talk to our guests more about that later on, but big problems on the offensive line. Okay, so of these teams I see that are are contenders but are 3-3, I think the Cincinnati Bengals are still contenders. They're 3-3, but their 3 losses are by a total of 8 points.
Yeah.
If you watched this past Sunday, they figured some things out on offense against a good Saints defense. The offensive line, they went in heavy on getting a better protection for Joe Burrow. They seem to be clicking now. Defense is playing well. They're in a very winnable division. I think the Bengals truly are contenders. The Rams, I believe in that coaching staff. I believe in their ability to get it right. And I think with Allen Robinson coming along now and providing a complement to Cooper Kupp, I think the Rams are going to get it right, too.
See, these teams, to me, what I'm going to lean on is quarterback play and how solid are these defenses. Yeah. I mean, you have guys, teams that are talented that have loaded rosters. The Rams are in that number. I think their defense is going to figure it out. And Matt Stafford, I think he's one of those guys that has earned the right to be bet on. And so can they start to figure it out? I believe they can. The only problem, though, is that they're playing in a very difficult NFC West. And they're going to have to try to figure it out alongside a very talented San Francisco 49ers team as well. And
who's trying to figure it out.
Right.
And then the Seahawks are 3-3, and no one saw that coming.
Yeah, that may be an overachiever type thing, but Geno Smith's playing out of his mind right now, taking the most of this opportunity that Pete Carroll's given him. And so we shall see. But
one thing, you mentioned that what you look at is based on quarterback play. What about the Packers? Because that's a quarterback you would normally bet on, but I think they are pretenders.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, in the
because
way
of the receiving core. Or
well,
the
that's a big part of it. Even Rodgers, 6 drop passes on Sunday, that's bad. But Rodgers missed a lot of throws too. Hasn't looked really sharp, and the run game hasn't been what it should be with those 2 running backs. But mainly because of the defense being a shadow of what everyone thought it would be. They went in heavy, spending tons of money on free agents, some big, first-round draft picks, and they can't stop the run. So I think that's the reason. I mean, they are in a very winnable division, but I just don't believe in the Packers right now.
Well, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings may have something to say about that, but I'm gonna always bet on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I think this guy has shown it time and time again. The weapons. You lose Devontae Adams, it's gonna be a hit. I mean, he's one of the best in the league for a reason, and I know that Rodgers certainly misses him. But when you lose on your home field to the Jets. Okay,
the Jets are good though.
Oh boy, yeah, are they? I don't know, but I did enjoy seeing Sauce Gardner, the rookie, running around with a cheese head on, and trolling the fans at Lambeau Field, and that kind of begs the question: what level of trolling is appropriate in sports? Are there no guardrails? Because I know in Knoxville. A couple certain songs were played after. Sorry, I told you I wasn't going to mention it.
It took you 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, that was a good 5 minutes, wasn't it? So that was, but they played what? Dixieland Delight. They played Sweet Home Alabama, and those are your songs. You own those.
Well, do we? I mean, we certainly have.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I know. We co-opted Dixieland Delight, which is odd if you listen to the lyrics because it talks about a Tennessee Saturday night. But yet, yes, we have made it our thing at Bryant-Denny Stadium. That plays between the 3rd and 4th quarter, and it's one of the great traditions in sports.
So
when
the trolling hits home for you, do you have a different take on it?
I have no problem with what Tennessee did. I would have trolled heavily too. They beat Alabama for the first time in 15 years, and it's they obviously were ready for that. They had the fireworks loaded and ready to go. They had the cigars ready to go, and they had these 2 songs ready to play. I don't know why they played Sweet Home Alabama, but I could get why they played Dixieland Delight. And, certainly, they may feel like they have ownership of that song. I have no problem with the trolling. I thought it was great, Lane Kiffin was trolling Alabama during the game, having been
he does that well
on Tennessee at a time they missed a field goal where they could have beat Alabama. Please make it this time. So I have no problem with the trolling.
You know what I just found out, though? That Leonard Skinnard is not from Alabama.
You just learned this.
I just Wikipedia'd this band. No,
they are from
Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a problem with this. I'm going to tell you. It kind of rocked my world a little bit.
What's your problem?
We'll talk about it later.
Oh, okay.
I'm ready to talk a little college football and NFL in greater depths. What do you say, Chris?
With a person who can better analyze it than us.
Absolutely.
Probably.
He's got to be one of the busiest men in the profession of sports broadcasting, and he is a football analyst for ESPN, former Buccaneer, good friend of the show. Let's welcome in Booger McFarland. Booger, thanks for joining us. I know that you're so busy during the football season. Do you even have time to get out on the driving range?
No, not the driving range. When I have a little free time, I actually try to go play rather than just hanging out on the range.
Yeah, I hear you.
Between NFL and college, take us through a typical work week for you.
Oh, my week's not bad, man. Like, I have to be in the chair Saturday at 12 o'clock. And, we have a marathon Saturday where we're doing pre, post, halftime feel of all the games till about probably about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And Sunday mornings are relaxing. I don't have to be at work until around 1:30. And we watch all the NFL games, except the late game, because we do our primetime show around 7:30. So we'll do that. I'll get done about 8:30. I'll have a car service take me to New York, and from New York, I'll fly Monday morning to wherever we are doing our Monday countdown show from. Do the show. Depending on if it's a West Coast city, I catch a red eye. If not, I'll fly home the next morning, and then kind of rinse and repeat all over again on the following weekend.
I don't know. It sounds about as busy as I thought.
I know, yeah.
I mean, you're talking about it very nonchalantly, but I think that type of schedule will be.
I like the car service idea. You could get a nap in if you need to, or watch some film in the car service. So, and you said you fly home. So where's home now? You still got a house in Tampa?
Still live in Tampa. Never left.
Beautiful. Love it.
So yeah, it's funny because your broadcasting career has just like taken off like a rocket ship. And it was 8 years ago that you started doing local radio in Tampa. Could you have envisioned this where you are now in such a short window of time?
Yeah. I mean, maybe not to the level, but I thought I was going to be successful, man. It's one of those things where if you don't think you're going to be successful, or you don't think that you have opportunities to go bigger and better than you start, then why are you doing it? So, yeah, I envisioned success. Didn't know where it would go or how it would go, but I've always been able to talk and have fun and enjoy sports. And at its core, that's what we do. We get to watch football, talk about it, have an opinion. You try to entertain people, try to dress nice, and you try to enjoy what you do, man. Because nobody wants to come to work and be a curmudgeon all day and be angry and be be stubborn and be upset. So I enjoy what I do.
Did you have the hot takes like in locker room days? Like, would you guys sit around in groups and talk about other games?
No, we mostly you would talk about other players. Like if you saw a guy that was having a good season, whether or not you liked his game or not. But mostly, man, when we had downtime, we were trying to figure out what we were supposed to be doing. And we played dominoes a lot in the locker room. So we would get together and watch some games just to kind of pay attention. But when those guys are your peers and you respect them, but you really, really look forward to competing against them. And so, the TV copy and the actual game is kind of entertainment. When we want to study or break down a guy, then that's when you got to get the all 22 out.
I hear you. Well, you mentioned how you're lucky if you get out to the driving range these days. Got to ask you about this. Scott and I know you from Scott more so than myself from the Abe Brown Invitational here in the Tampa Bay area. Wonderful fundraiser for Abe Brown Ministries, which does so much to help those who have been incarcerated reacclimate to society and become productive members. You're a great spokesperson for that organization. But on the golf end of that, I got to ask you, who's the best former player you've ever golfed with?
There's some good ones out there, man. Like locally, Rondé's really good. He puts a lot of work into his game. Mark Royals, I haven't played with him in a while, but he was pretty good. Nationally, former player, Josh Scobie, kicker, used to kick in Jacksonville. He was really good.
Enough nice stuff. Who's the worst? Who's the worst former player you've golfed with?
Well, there's a lot of guys that are bad, man. Because if golf is a game that if you don't put any time and effort into, you're gonna be bad. So I played with a lot of guys that could easily break 150 on the high end.
Yeah, baby. All right. I feel like I've never felt more akin to other professional athletes than at this moment.
That's as close as we'll get to other pro football players.
Booger, I know that everybody knows you as Booger, but and the story has been told about how you earned your nickname. But I'm curious when the first person other than a family member called you that, and what was kind of your feeling about that? How long did it take to embrace?
I don't remember who the first person. It was probably one of my sister's friends or one of my friends, because this all took place when I was younger, and so kids and start to hear it, and kids like to tease other kids, and next thing you know, I'm pretty sure it was one of those kids that kind of got it started and kind of kept it going. And now, again, everybody kind of knows the story. It's to the point now where I use the name to differentiate who knows me and who doesn't, especially when you're in a crowd of people. People just automatically start screaming your name and calling your name and all these different things, and you have to you can't turn around and talk to everybody. So you kind of have to decide how are you going to decipher who's who. And so I usually don't answer, although nowadays no one really calls me Anthony. It's kind of gone in reverse a little bit, to be honest with you. Since everybody kind of knows me now, it's kind of crazy that we're on TV. So everybody calls you Booger. So when I hear somebody call me Anthony, my ears perk up a little bit.
It's somebody who doesn't know you.
Yeah.
That's
like mom.
That's a bill collector or someone.
Yeah,
Stay away from them.
Exactly.
All right, we got to get your take on the state of college football, and of course, last week it was the big win for Tennessee over Alabama, and how that kind of shifts things a little bit in the SEC. How do you see this playing out? Because we got 4 playoff spots still. You got to assume that 2 are probably going to SEC teams, but Ole Miss is still undefeated, and of course Georgia has kind of inside track, and Tennessee is legit, and Bama's 1 win off, and they could of course win the West. So how does this play out in your eyes?
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I don't know. Like, I don't start worrying about playoff spots until we get past Halloween. Like, I'm always like looking at deadlines. Like, baseball for me is Memorial Day. Once I get past Memorial Day, then I'll start to pay attention to baseball. Basketball, once we get past Christmas, I'll start to pay attention to basketball. NFL, it's Thanksgiving. College football is Halloween. Like, when I get past Halloween, because usually by then teams are 8 and 9 games into the season. And so at that point, you kind of have an idea because you can see the finish line. Right now, obviously, I think there's probably 7 or 8 teams that have a legitimate shot. Tennessee still got to play Georgia. Ole Miss has got to go to LSU this weekend. Then they got to play Alabama. Ohio State, Michigan got to play. So there's so many scenarios that are still left out there. I think you kind of waste your time trying to figure out who's going to be the 4. I'll just say that I think we're going to have more parity and more balance than we initially thought, because we initially thought this was going to be, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. Well, I think it's going to be a little bit more than that, especially with Tennessee jumping in there, Ole Miss looking good. So, I think it's going to be a little deeper than we initially thought.
Well, I can tell you it's going to be Clemson is in one of those spots. They got no one in their way. Right.
And by the way, Chris had his playoff set back in July, so there's no such thing as too early for some folks.
Well, some of us have to drive a talk show and conversation, so we do start worrying about this stuff before Halloween. But you're right, Booger, it's way too early. You mentioned some of the SEC West teams there. Let's talk about LSU just for a bit with your ties there. What's your take on the Brian Kelly era so far? They got smoked by Tennessee at home, then they go on the road, and of course they've owned the Gators the last 5 or 6 years. Tough loss to open the season against Florida State that they could have won. They're at 4-2 now, though, with 1 conference loss. How is Brian Kelly doing so far?
I think he's doing outstanding, man. I think if you look, I think they're 5-2 to be honest.
Yeah, that's right.
I think if you look at where they were, let's go back less than a year ago in the bowl game in December, where they had 39 scholarship athletes, to where they are now, which. The offense went into Florida and spanked a really well-coached Florida team. They're 5-2. Recruiting is going really, really well. The transfer portal has kind of helped bridge the gap until some of the young guys are ready to go. He's starting out of the starting 22. I want to say they start 5 freshmen. It's a relatively young team. So based on where we were to where we are relative to I guess the expectations are going as good as they could have gone. You could have gotten the Florida State win. I don't think we're ready to beat Tennessee. So, I give BK a solid B+, man. And I think it's going to be about how you finish the season. And we'll see where LSU goes. I know this. If you look at the last 3 coaches that have coached there, in their tenure, they won national championship. That's Saban, Orgeron, Les Miles. They've all won one. And I think BK is trending from an early stage to getting himself in a position where he can challenge 2-3 years down the road once he gets his program where it needs to be. LSU be back in the mix, man.
Yeah,
I love that you call him BK. It shows that there's some intimacy there. There's a genuine friendship. Has he reached out to you as a notable alum to get your thoughts when he got in?
Yeah, well, I don't know, but I mean, it's a lot easier to say BK than Brian Kelly all the time, you know. But yeah, I think any responsible coach, man, you got to reach out and you got to kind of welcome the guys that have been there before, because again, most coaches are going to be there for a short period of time, you know, and they're going to move on and either get fired or retire, and usually it's the former. So yeah, BK's done a good job, man.
I know that Chris wanted to move on past Rocky Top.
Yes,
but I want to get back
please.
to get back to that. So Hendon Hooker, obviously, I mean, he's inside track Heisman. He is the talk. But when teams are trying to rise to prominence, when you're trying to get a program to the ranks of a Georgia, an Alabama, an Ohio State, a perennial favorite that's just reloading every year, for a team like Tennessee that's led predominantly, they have a lot of talent, but of course their quarterback is the guy, and once he's gone,
right,
you wonder if it's sustainable. How difficult is it for programs like Tennessee to sustain that success?
Well, I don't think it's difficult at all. I think it's about momentum. You got to remember, Nick Saban's first year, when Alabama lost to Louisiana Monroe, I think they went 7-5 or something like that. And then once you start to win, you built the momentum. And I think that's the one thing he's done at Alabama is he built his program to a point now where it basically runs itself. And he did it early on by creating momentum, by winning, recruiting. And once you kind of get that cycle going, you can keep it going, especially in the SEC. And it's select programs around the country outside of the SEC that can do it. But there's such a passion for football in the South, man. I mean, just look at that scene at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Look at that scene. Alabama had beaten Tennessee 15 in a row, and there was 110,000 people they were just sitting there on the edge of their seat for every play because it means something. And I think when people always get upset when you talk about the SEC and, well, it just means more. Well, guess what? It kind of does. Like, it's just different in the South, man. We don't have ice hockey. We don't have, most of the time, there's no lacrosse. Like, it's just football in the South. That's it. Football, a little baseball. We're not worried about golf. We're not worried about, water polo. It's football year round, man. And I think that's the biggest difference. And you see it. And when Tennessee's rolling, Tennessee can recruit anywhere against anybody. And the problem has been getting the momentum going. Like, even when they've won a couple games in the past, it kind of stalled out with an NCAA investigation, or it stalled out with something else. But I think they have every opportunity this year to keep it going. Josh Heupel is young. He's young enough. He's innovative. He's an offensive guy. And that's where football is going right now. Like, defense, for whatever reason, is not in vogue. If you're the young, hotshot offensive guy, you can kind of sell that. And I think NIL has really given college football more parity than we thought it would. Because now, if you got money, and let's face it, a lot of schools got money. If you got money, then you can get a good team filled. It just depends on how much money you want to spend.
Well, and Tennessee's already got one, right? A quarterback coming from California who their NIL collective has put up vast sums to get him this 5-star. So, yeah, they'll keep it rolling there, I think. I mean, Tennessee's always been a sleeping giant, kind of ready to reascend to the top there. And if there were any recruits at that scene at Neyland Stadium on Saturday night, then they're already hooked. They're not going anywhere else. Cigars for everyone. Can we stop talking about the Tennessee-Alabama game, please? Let's get back. Let's get to the NFL, Booger. The game, as we tape this, you're coming off of a Monday night game where we saw the Chargers and the Broncos. And what is going on with quarterback play right now in your mind? Why are we seeing some of these guys just not producing like we have seen them produce in the past?
Stafford, Rodgers specifically, right?
Wilson. I mean, even Justin Herbert wasn't good the other night. It's kind of really all over the place.
I think these guys are struggling to find their rhythm. let's not forget most of them didn't play in the preseason. And so most of them are trying to use the season to kind of get in rhythm and get ready. And it's tough to do when you're going against live bullets or somebody's trying to knock your head off. And so it's a little difficult. I do think the quarterback play will pick up. Like once we get past, once we get into November, get past Thanksgiving, I think you're going to see the cream rise to the top consistently. But let's not forget, just because the guys you named aren't playing well, I mean, if you look at what Josh Allen is doing, look at what Mahomes is doing, look at what Jalen Hurts is doing, look at what some of these guys that are playing, Kirk Cousins, like there's some guys playing at a high level now.
Yeah.
It's just not everyone. And so I do think the more consistent ones that we're used to seeing there will slowly rise up as the season goes along.
Well, and some of those names that you mentioned are the young and up-and-comers, whereas some of the names that are struggling, and we don't want to necessarily pin it on age, but these are the older quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
And perhaps
Right.
that's has some level of play into this. Speaking of old quarterbacks, Tom Brady, I know that the story here in Tampa is about, is he committed?
Right.
He went to a wedding on 2 nights before a game last week. He missed some time during training camp. What level of commitment is there? In your mind, is this a story at all? Is this dog going to hunt, or is this just a complete non-story and this is bigger than Tom Brady?
Well, I do think, first of all, it's bigger than Tom Brady, but I do think that if you question his commitment, I think you're probably wrong. I do think if you make the statement that says, for the first time in a long time, there are things that have taken a more important stance in his life than football during a time when football normally dominates, I think that's a fair statement. And as far as going to the wedding, like a lot of guys, Friday night is your night. Like we get off work early at like 1 o'clock. You got all night. Most guys go out on dates. Most guys go to movies. You do go to dinner, do whatever. So if you got the ability to jump on a private jet and fly to wherever, I'm cool with it. Listen, if you got to do it. My only question with Tom was, okay, if you could fly the jet up there, why not just fly the jet back, be at meetings Saturday morning, do the walkthrough and fly with your team? Like, I really have no problem with him, jumping on his jet. Tom Brady has earned the right based on his accolades and based on how much money he's earned, him and his family. He can do what he wants to do. Like, if you got to do it. My only question to him is, why didn't you fly back on the same private jet and go to because normally you have like a 2-hour meeting, which is mainly a review of what you did during the week. And then the walkthrough, you're out there in tennis shoes and a baseball hat. So it's not like you were really even moving. So I get it. It's really nothing, but it means something because it's a team thing. Like, we all do it. It's kind of like Urban Meyer. When Urban Meyer didn't fly back with his team, was it a big deal? Not really, because all he's going to do is sit on the plane and fly back and get off and go home. But it means something because it kind of signifies that we're all together. And we ripped Urban Meyer a new one because he's the head coach. Well, I'm not saying Tom Brady's the head coach, but he's the most important player on the team. So I don't think it's the reason why they lost to the Steelers. But I do think that if you're a fan and you question for the first time whether something during the course of July and January besides football are more important, I think you have a right to do that.
Well, in Urban Meyer's situation, to be fair, he ended up at a different establishment, which caused some extra headlines that Brady's not going to be guilty of, But I do wonder of how much that does, even though they're not going to say it, does that sow a little bit of discord in the locker room? Guys that kind of look and say, hey, I can't get away with that.
Especially if you're chewing out your offensive line, right?
Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, most guys in the locker room, like, guys respect the game. Like, they know what he brings to the table. Yeah. I would think if he showed up to practice and he wasn't prepared, then there would be some discourse in the locker room. But I think he's the most prepared person. I think he's going to be there. Again, I don't think him not being there Saturday in any way, shape, or form was the reason they lost, or even a small piece of why they lost. They lost because they couldn't get off the field on third down. Yeah. Their left guard and center were terrible. And the offensive game plan wasn't exactly what I would call winning football. So that's the reason they lost. Now, can they get it fixed? We'll see. I think that, defensively, when you have a veteran defense, that defense typically prides itself on dominating. And I think when you look at the Bucs, like when they roll out their starting 11, even without Akeem Hicks, you look at Nunez Roches, you look at Golson, you look at Tryon, you look at Shaq Barrett, you look at Vita Vea, Devin White, Levante David, Carlton. Like these are guys that have played a lot of football, and some of them aren't playing well. Shaq Barrett. I mean, I don't think I've seen Shaq. I don't think I saw the Shaq Barrett the year before he got the contract. I haven't seen that guy since.
Yeah.
I've seen flashes, but I haven't seen the consistency. Carlton Davis, I haven't seen the consistency from him. And I think that hopefully, I'm not in the locker room. I just watched the tape. Hopefully there's a level of accountability inside the locker room for everybody, especially the guys that are making the money. Like those are the guys that have got, and if you look at that defense, a lot of guys on that defense making a lot of money, from Vita to Shaq to Levante to Devin to Carlton. Like those guys are making a lot of money, and you got to be able to carry your weight. And sometimes that means doing more than just, hey, 16 points. Sometimes when you got a rookie quarterback and you got a guy who's gotten benched, like you got to take that and say, you know what, we're not allowing these guys across the 50-yard line.
Yeah.
Like where's that kind of pride and that accountability? I don't see that with them just yet.
Killer instinct. We have faith and hope, of course, that the Bucs defense is going to be just fine. And certainly some injuries in the secondary haven't helped get those guys back. Back to what you said about the offensive game plan, though. Something's lacking there. Can't convert these third and shorts to save their life. Lowest rushing output in the NFL right now. Do you think the Bucs are missing Bruce Arians? I
don't think so. I mean, Byron called the plays the last 2 years, so I mean, I'm sure.
But it's something about Bruce's. I don't know. Maybe this is just me looking for an excuse, but he's almost
probably
the leadership. Kind of their spirit animal. I don't know. We all want to find something that's different from last year, right? And that seems to be a big glaring difference.
Yeah, I don't. Bruce, knowing Bruce and how big an advocate of Byron that Bruce has been. Bruce had a headset on, but Byron called all the plays. Yeah. And he's talked about that for years. Like he didn't dibble and dabble or meddle. And don't get me wrong, Bruce is at practice a lot. He's there every day. So if there was something, I'm sure that he saw, because you gotta remember, Bruce turned it over to Todd. Bruce turned it over to Byron. So Bruce wants them to succeed. So I'm sure if he sees something, he's got the green light to go and knock on Byron's door or Todd's door. So even though Bruce is not on the sideline, he is ever present at that facility just about every day. So if there were a reason that you asked me to put some money on that was playing a major difference, that would probably be the last one on the list.
Well, Booger, as they say, a team always takes on the personality of their senior executive assistant. Right?
I never heard that.
No.
Well, it helps to have
in the Bucs case, maybe with Bruce Arians. Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing a little bit of knowledge with us. I'm sure that your private car awaits here because you've got big games to get to this week, and we certainly appreciate you carving out a little bit of time with us.
We didn't get his Super Bowl pick. We don't know if we'll get to talk to him again before the Super Bowl.
Can we? Now, wait, if it's too early to talk playoffs, then it's probably too early for a February Super Bowl.
No, I bet he's got one.
I'll give you the AFC Championship game and the NFC just a guess. AFC, I'm gonna go chalk. I'll go Buffalo, Kansas City. I think those are clearly the two best teams. NFC right now, if you force me to pick, I would probably go Philly and Tampa. I just think that Tampa's too talented, man. I think they'll be there. Those will be my final four. And I'd feel pretty good at least getting 3 out of the 4 right, maybe all 4.
The Bucs are the Clemson in that scenario. They have the easiest road forward in that horrible NFC South. All right, can I let him get back to work now?
Okay, I guess.
Or at least go hit some balls. All right, Booger McFarland, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Booger. Always. You're the best.
Later, man.
Chris, you know what I didn't ask Booger about? What his thoughts are on Leonard Skinner being from Jacksonville, Florida, and not from Alabama.
I feel like he would have had a take.
Do you think Do you think he would be on my side or your side?
How do you know what my side is?
Well, because you don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem
Brian,
with it.
do you have a problem with Leonard Skinner being from Jacksonville, Florida?
I have no problem with it.
Why? They sing your anthem. Sweet home, Alabama. The second word being home, a place where one dwells.
Wait, do you know? Okay, do you know why they sing "Sweet Home Alabama"?
Tell him, Chris.
Well, yeah, tell me.
Well, it
What do
was
you know?
written as a response to Neil Young, who wrote 2 songs, Southern Man and a song titled Alabama,
Okay.
that was putting down the
Yes.
Southern people of
Okay,
the time.
but it's not Sweet Home Southern People.
So what Leonard Skinner was doing was writing a defense of Southerners in those songs, and so they wrote "Sweet Home Alabama" because Neil Young drug Alabama's sweet name
Okay, but
into
I think
it.
we're mixing here because my issue is not with the song. The song is great.
You just don't
And
like that
I
they're
don't-
not from Alabama?
It rattled my cage a bit. Okay.
Well, look,
it
if-
kind of shook my foundation.
Listen, if
you
Neil Young had written a song called "Florida," they would have sang about "Sweet Home Florida." You should have a problem with Neil Young.
well, Florida is in the South.
Neil Young wrote a song titled "Alabama."
Okay.
Do you have a problem with Creedence Clearwater Revival not being born on the bayou? They're from California, your neck of the woods.
A little bit. Yeah. Now that you mention it, I kind of do have a problem with it.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't know.
I don't see the outrage.
If you found out that Frank Sinatra was from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, okay? If you found out the Beach Boys were from London, is that?
I don't.
I feel
is
like
it not?
It doesn't bother me that if the members of Boston are not from Boston.
Are they?
They're
You know?
not.
No, they may be. I don't know.
What about
I don't-
Chicago?
I never
Wait,
looked it
is
up.
Alabama? Are they from Alabama?
Alabama
Yes.
is from
That's-
Alabama.
What if you found out they were from Missouri?
It wouldn't change it.
No, it would change it.
How?
It would be a problem.
How many? I mean, Tukes probably knows, but I don't even know. Like Kansas, how many members from Kansas are from Kansas?
That's a great question.
You know,
They
I just
better
don't
all
understand
of
the
them.
outrage.
At least a couple of them.
Okay.
All right.
I'm glad we
sure.
hashed that out.
All right.
Yes, good. We got
Sorry,
it
I'm
solved.
just a little.
Well,
Yeah. Billy
Good.
Joel.
I got this,
Billy Joel's from New Mexico. Did you know that?
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
New York State of Mind. All right.
Hey guys, I got this video here I saw the other day. It's just absolutely insane. It just exemplifies like the whole, fight or flight response in a pressure situation.
We just saw some of that.
I was about to fight.
I know, but this takes it to the next level. Go ahead and roll it, Sean. It happens in Japan where a guy's mountain climbing, and then just take a look at what happens.
It's a bear.
Sound that?
Oh my gosh.
There's a bear attacking this
He,
guy.
yes,
and he's still holding his phone, pointing.
Yeah.
I think he might have had a GoPro actually on his helmet.
Who's yelling? Is that the bear? Or
That's the guy.
Okay.
That's
fighting
what
him
you're
off.
supposed to do. You're supposed to yell and make yourself big, right?
That's what they say.
Not for a grizzly. For a black bear, yell, make yourself big.
He looks like a small bear.
He
He's a little smaller.
Well, I
But
wouldn't
what
want
it
him.
was, he stumbled into is a mother bear, and in the very bottom of this video, you can see where a
Who's punching the
cub,
bear?
little cub comes up. So
Stomp.
she was just defending her, what she thought was a predator.
Yeah.
There you can see the little cub right in there, and the guy said that all he did was started screaming, which I would have done. I'd
Did
had
he?
that part down, yeah. And then he said he uses karate moves.
Yeah,
And so
he-
karate in
Was that
reading,
the crane kick that he's doing?
I don't know, whatever it was, it worked. But he said that what he did, experts say that's what you do. You hit the bear in the head.
I'm
No,
always
not a
thinking about
grizzly,
those
though.
scenarios.
No.
Like if I encounter, my greatest fear is sharks. If I encounter a shark, they say to play dead, right?
Do they?
No, I don't know.
Scream
I,
and
I
make
mix it
yourself
up,
look
and
big.
that's the problem. In the mode of panic, I would get it wrong.
Yeah,
I would
you
think,
would
wait, am I supposed to play dead, or am I supposed to punch the bear in the mouth? I don't know.
Well, I can tell you that if I stepped on a piece of like hard seaweed in the Gulf, you didn't know, I would sound just like that guy being attacked by the bear. Because I jump
I
around.
feel bad for the bear. Like you wake up for hibernation, you're hanging out, and this screaming mountain climber climbs into your den and starts punching you in the face. that was bad.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the bear.
He was up for a little tussle. I mean,
What
he
was
kept
I-
coming back for more.
Yeah, but it's insane. Give it up to him though. Just keep his cool. And then he didn't fall off the mountain. I mean, he
That's
was
the
hanging
big-
on.
He didn't even stop recording on his cell phone, which might be an even greater indictment.
and then he
of where we're
posted
at.
it to the
Of course.
interwebs.
Yeah.
It's all staged.
All right. Yeah. That was a bear. That was a person in a bear costume. Without further ado, let's bring Tukes back in. All right, Tukes, you've taken a lot in this episode of the Nod Pod, and I know it's going to be impossible to condense this down to a song, but I trust you.
May I try?
Yes.
Please.
And may I? I think the bear was angry about the man being on his phone in that beautiful vista.
Exactly. It's very
He was
rude.
just cranky.
Yeah. Such
It's
a
like, get
millennial
off
thing
your
to do.
phone
Or the
and
bear was
look
like,
at nature.
You get reception here? I never get reception out
T-Mobile.
Yeah.
All right, so here's a little song that Scott commissioned
Yeah.
by inducing me with pretzels and
Pumpkin spice pretzels.
pumpkin spice items.
All right.
So
and a 1. I like it already.
Every song tells a story. Here's the story to the nodpod song.
Oh, yes.
Scott said, Tukes, I think we need a nodpod song. Scott's my boss, and I really like this job, so I said, okay. So na 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 nodpod song, na 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 na, no off day song, na 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 nodpod song, no off days, no off days, no off days. Roll call of the guests you can hear right here on Scott Smith and Chris Cato's and Brian King's No Off Days podcast. We just heard from Anthony McFarland. His nickname's Booger. Booger. A first-round draft pick.
That's right.
Who won 2 Super Bowls. Phil Esposito.
Not on this show.
We call him Espo. And Joe Madden, we just call him Joe. Kevin Kiermaier, we call him KK. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's Fitzmagic. Hey, hey.
That's beautiful.
This song will grow longer with each passing episode. I don't see why. Eventually, it will exceed Don McLean's American Pie.
Let's hope so.
So na 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 nodpod song, na 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 na, no off days, na 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 nodpod song, no off days, no off days.
Beautiful. That is so beautiful. It's exceeded what I could have ever imagined. The great Jeff Tewksbury, thank you so much.
You are too kind.
And on that note, play us out, please, Maestro. All right, if you want to watch full-length episodes, go to fox13news.com/nodpod, the QR code on the screen. How have we not hooked you by now? I believe that is. That's going to be the selling point.
I'm hooked on pumpkin spice. That's amazing. Good job, Tukes.
No, off day. I love it. All right, for our guests, Booger McFarland, for Tukes, for Chris, for BK in the booth, I'm Scott. And remember, until the next time we are on, there are no off days. Play us out, Tukesy.
We're not worthy.